Okay, I want to share something with you that we were going through with students, like our church's youth group, for the last couple of weeks. We've been reading through Daniel, and it's been really cool to see it with fresh eyes, different perspective, because the one thing I love about going through Old Testament stories is that you either have you're either going through it with people that have never heard the story before and they have a whole different perspective, or they see different things that you haven't, or you're going through it after hearing these stories like countless times and maybe hearing it slightly a bit fabricated because the children Bible is kind of not as detailed. Okay, so we've been going through Daniel, and this is my thought process synopsis sort of overview over Daniel. The point for me is just to share what I thought was cool this time around. This is a book in the Bible that you could read in probably 30 minutes. If you're a slow reader, like really slow, it might take you an hour, but you could read it in a sitting. And it's enjoyable. It's enjoyable, but this is the one thing I noticed. I noticed when reading through Daniel is that we think it's about the faith of Daniel, the faith of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, because there are two distinct moments in these men's lives where people saw their faith and believed the God they believed because of them walking out their faith. With Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, it was the fiery furnace. And with Daniel, it was, of course, him interpreting the dreams, but Daniel and his time in the lion's den. And after looking at all of these moments, and I've realized it's not about their faith and their courage. It's about them believing who God said he is and trusting that God is who he says he is. And it's so easy to look at Daniel and think about us and about what we can do to be like him. When the reality is that Daniel never pointed the spotlight on himself. After he did every miracle interpretation or anything, he pointed the spotlight back to God to make sure that people were aware of where all of this power and truth is coming from. And that's what I loved about Daniel this time around. But for some of you who've never heard this story before, let's give a little quick refresher recap, okay? So the story of Daniel was taken during a time where Jerusalem was taken captive by Babylon. And the king at this time was King Nebuchadnezzar. So during this time, the king decided that he was going to take a few of the people of Jerusalem into their land and train them and educate them in the ways of Babylon. And end of the story, they not only taught them their whole language, their whole culture, they changed their names too. So Daniel, his name was, let me go back. I'm looking back at the Bible. Daniel, his name was Belteshazzar. If I pronounce it wrong, I could care less. You pronounce it however you choose to pronounce it. And then Hananiah was Shadrach, Mishael was Meshach, and Azariah was Abednego. And some people might say, I'm only going to call them by their original name. And that's fine. Some people might call them by the name they were known for. It doesn't really matter. Well, I might go back on my word on this one. But in this case, it is important to know those two. To know that their names were changed. But even though their names were changed, they still walked in the knowledge, the faith, and the beliefs of God in general. So as looking through all of this, they are learning how to survive in Babylon after not believing in the gods, not God, gods they believe. So they went through this fast. This is where you see the Daniel fast come from. And this is where they just ate fruits vegetables and water, and that's it. No meat. And it was a whole debate with these people because they were like, you guys are going to be weak. You guys are not going to, look, we can't have you weak. And Daniel said, like, the Lord is going to give us the strength that we need, and I will prove it to you. They go on a fast and they come out stronger than the rest of the people that they were with. And they were like, all right, then you can continue to do what you're doing and worship your God because you're doing a great job with what we're doing. Remember, so they in this case, they were workers. They were slaves in this case for Babylon. And as they continued to practice out their faith and revealed their faith to the people, they started rising in power. But King Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. He had multiple dreams, actually, and multiple visions that has happened. And Daniel interpreted these visions. And through this, Daniel clearly says, this is from the Lord. Like, this is not from me. And Nebuchadnezzar, his heart softened. And through that, I hope that he fully believed in God when he died. I'm not sure. But the point of it is that as Daniel was taken as a slave into captivity and culturized to be a Babylonian, he still stayed true to his values and what he knows and who he knows God is. And through this, he was still being promoted in an area that did not believe in who he was. So on top of that, there are a whole bunch of different things that happens. He has dreams, he has visions, and God shows up. He shows up every time and reveals the interpretation of these said things. And this is where I think where the whole, like, we have people that see visions, and then we have also people that interpret them, and very rarely do those people do both. Sometimes they do, but it's cool that we all have a piece of the puzzle, and then God puts those together and we all can do something beautiful for him that shows who he is. So then we lead to the fiery furnace. And this was a time where Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were told that they needed to bow down to their gods. And they said, no, that was not happening. So there's this song that we hear all the time where it's like, there's another one in the fire standing next to him. And all of that, if you know the song, you know the song. This is what this story is referring to. During this time, what happened was, as these three are in this fiery furnace, another one shows up. One of God's angels comes up and is in the fire. And when they walk out of this fire, they are not consumed. They walked out the same as they walked in. And we see this story and we hear this story growing up about faith and about having faith that is strong enough that you will believe what seems to be impossible by man. And in this, it's not about us having enough faith to do the thing, because we know in the Gospels that we just need a faith the size of a mustard seed. It's all about God showing who he is. And we get the opportunity to partner with him in that. And they got the opportunity to do that as well. So right after this, there's this small section here, and it says Nebuchadnezzar praises God. And I'm going to quote this a little bit. I'm in chapter 4. He says, how great are his signs, how mighty are his wonders. His kingdom is an everlasting kingdom. His dominance endures from generation to generation. And by this time, King Nebuchadnezzar has not only had God reveal his dream. It doesn't say Daniel, it says Daniel interprets the dream, but it literally says God gives Nebuchadnezzar a certain dream. Then it shows of the fiery furnace incident. And by seeing those things, Nebuchadnezzar is like, praise your God. Like, your God is good. But even then, he still is worshiping all these other idols too, because just one God's not enough. And then this happens to us too, where we settle for multiple gods because we feel like it gives us comfortability. When the reality is all of that should come from one God and the God. So right after this, Nebuchadnezzar has another dream. And Daniel interprets it again, as he does. And it was not good. It was not a good dream. If anyone gets startled out of their sleep, that dream didn't feel good. It didn't feel good. And of course, Daniel interprets it. Nebuchadnezzar knows who to call. And it's told that you're going to be humiliated. And Nebuchadnezzar gets humiliated. And that hardened his heart a little bit, just a little bit. And then the handwriting on the wall happens. Imagine you're sitting here at a feast with thousands of people, and you start seeing a magical hand start writing on the wall. What are you going to do? I'm just curious. If that happened, I don't know. And of course, they send Daniel to come interpret this said dream. And he did. And at this point, note that this is his son. We're at second generation of kings right now. And Daniel has lived through some of the ruling of Nebuchadnezzar, and now he's living through the ruling of Belshazzar, which is him as well. Still the same people. What's crazy is that we've known, even in looking at history in the world, that not always the son follows after the father or is aware of everything. So Daniel's like, shoot, I don't even know what's going to happen with this, but the only thing I can do is continue to serve my God and continue to pray that the Lord's going to do as he says he will do. And something happens with Belshazzar, shakes him up a little bit. And he then starts realizing, oh my gosh, this is probably what my father was saying. Listen, if you were the kid of Nebuchadnezzar and you never remembered this event or these events happening, your dad, you would have seen your dad go crazy for a moment in time. So Daniel then shows up the same way he did. Now we're still looking at Daniel's ability to do miracles. And through that, God still gets glorified. And people are not happy. They're not happy that Daniel is rising in power. He's rising in status. He's doing amazing. They're not happy. So they're like, well, we need to get rid of him. He needs to be gone. So they try everything to get this man gone. But they didn't realize that he has done, there's nothing to point anything at, to convict him of. So they had the king make up this rule. And by making up this rule, it put Daniel in a position to get locked up, and the king could not do anything about it. And he literally says, let me find it. He says, I pray that give me a second. He says, I hope that may your God, whom you serve continually, deliver you. It's like, he's like, I hope. He's not a full believer. He's not believing 100%, but he's like, I know the God you believe is doing something, because nothing can be explained by what you can do. So Daniel gets thrown into this lion's den and he comes out unscathed. And you're like, what do you mean? You went and you spent time in a lion's den and they didn't eat you. They didn't consume you. The Lord, that is only God. And when when the king realized that they were trapping Daniel, they put their families, their children, and their wives in the same lion's den that Daniel was just in. And guess what they did? They ate them. They ate them faster than fast. So looking at all of these things, and you're seeing how the Lord is faithful, he is powerful, he's all-knowing, even though people might not fully understand who he is. And Daniel was a great example of a person who used what God gave him for his glory, not Daniel's glory, but God's glory. You know what I mean? So Daniel's den is happening. Daniel also has a vision. Then the vision's also interpreted. Daniel has another vision also interpreted. And then we start hearing more and more about the end of his life. And we could see that Daniel is a seer. That was a gifting the Lord gave him. He gave him the ability to see things, interpret things, and to use it for his glory. And the one thing that stood out to me that through the whole thing was it wasn't about Daniel's faith. We are told so much about the faith of Daniel, the faith of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and how that's what gave them the confidence and the strength to live out life in Babylon. But I look at this and I realize that it's not just about their faith. It's about God. It's about who he is. It's about of seeing God's power. You get to see God's power in numerous of ways. You could see his compassion to his judgment, but also the power to through miracles and miracles done through us. So I see all of these things, and it literally just makes me reminds me that when I read the Bible, it's so easy to read the Bible for yourself. What does it say about me? What can I do? What should I want? What do I need to do? All the things. Me. And we forget that to look at scriptures and see who God is. What has he done? Who is he? And through this, we see a God that loves. We see a God that fights for his people and for justice. We see God that has grace on those who do not believe in who he is. But we also see the power and the strength when someone who loves God partners with him. So this was my little spiel with Daniel in the lion's den, and Daniel and his visions, and Daniel and his dreams, and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and the fiery furnace. And the end is, it's not about us. It's not about our faith, about what I can do, what we can do. It's about, how does God get the glory? How do we see who God is? Through his character and through what he has done and what he will do. Because that's what kept Daniel hopeful through the whole thing. Not his faith. It was to know that if God is who he says he is, then there is nothing that my God, his God, our God can't do. And we have to hope in that, because it's the truth. But that's my thoughts, my concerns, all the things. I hope you have a great one. Enjoy your weekend. It's approaching that time. So I will see ya. Bye.